That's from I don't even know, just my guess. And the internet, I don't even know how to comment this because I've been sitting too much in the United States watching the news. But that's how I take it. I don't see by any chance that it was like two missiles striking at the same time and both of them collapsing the two sections of the bridge. You would have to strike it at the four places to collapse them, and all of the strikes have to be precise. Like it's not even a GPS precision. It's much more than that probably. And it's just if you combine that together, it just does not work. For it to work, you have to be sure that it's going to work, and to be sure, you have to have someone who have planted the charges and have been waiting for train to pass. Maybe it was not a missile strike. Maybe the plane had a bomb as well there, but it's just I don't believe it was some kind of missile rocket or whatever. It was special operation forces. That's my take on it. I don't believe anything else at the moment.
Thank you, Konstantin. I will take this moment to remind everyone that we are here 24/7, and if you could please share and retweet the space, and also check MriyaAid and donate if you have the money. I will go to Polly, who is waiting for a long time, and then to Jerry and Daniel. Polly, please.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, so if we look at the aftermath and the pictures, there are a few things I would like to highlight. You see the collapsed road joints. Most of them the surface is quite intact. So that leads me to think that in the surface there wasn't that many explosives or missiles. Then, if you look at the aftermath videoed this morning from the railroad, so I think the train, it has burned, and the high intensity burn has caused some damage on the railroad tracks and the train. But I think the tracks are quite intact. So I think the tracks or the train wasn't actually attacked. It was just the fire. Because if the train would have been attacked and hit with a kinetic force, I'm quite certain that the train would have moved into a direction like left or right. Then I think someone brought up the possibility of sea vessel carrying explosives. Well, I will not entirely rule that out, but in my opinion, from the video, you can see that the explosion comes from the road or from up to bottom direction, not from bottom to up. If you would have a sea vessel carrying, let's say, payload of 1 ton or 1,000 kilos of explosives per joint, the explosion you would see would be, in my opinion, quite different. It would bring more water into the explosion if you would create that kind of explosion. And if you are a Ukrainian military expert planning this kind of operation, I think that kind of explosion would not be the primary I would seek. I would lean into Daniel's and Konstantin's hypothesis in the way that I think special operations was used in this explosion, and I think they pre-planned some explosives in the 3 joints at the road, and then they waited for the train to come. Maybe they also had some knowledge that there's going to be military trucks passing by, and then they just timed the perfect timing to blow out the first, second, and third explosions. And at the moment, I don't have any evidence to disclose that a missile or any missiles were used. All right, that's my take on the matter. Thank you.
Gianna, wouldn't it be nice if we had all these hands every night? It's great, but we are doing our best, guys. We got a lot of people in the pipe still, so please, if you don't have anything you want to add immediately, cycle down. We'll get you back up if you are so inclined. So we're doing our best to cycle everyone through. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Anda.
Thank you, Joseph. The order of the hands right now is Daniel, Ian, and Jerry, and I'm trying to bring Dr. Paul up, and I see Christian and Luis in the queue and others. So please be patient, and also for the ones who are already on the panel, if you don't have, as Joseph said, a direct question right now, please lower yourself down. Thank you.
We got like 10 slots, and me and Anda all night have been like, oh my god, like we've got 2 slots to work with, and we're trying to get people up, and we got so many hands. So please just do us a favor. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Anda.
Thank you. So Ian, Daniel, Jerry, Dr. Paul, and Luis.
Is that me now?
Yes.
I was just going to bring up one point, and this is something that I believe his name was Charles, who was a sapper and keenly familiar with explosives and demolition. And he made the point, which makes total sense, that there absolutely had to have been some explosive force that was generated on top of the bridge itself because of the direction in which all of the guardrails were blown away from and bent over either side, and that an explosion that was only generated from underneath the bridge under the spans would not have caused that effect of the metal guardrails on either side of the lane being completely bent away from each other, as if an explosion happened on top. So, if an explosion was planted underneath the bridge by special forces and it coincided with another explosive, either from a truck or from a missile, fine. But there was definitely an explosion on top of the bridge.
Thank you, Ian. Daniel, you have something to add?
Yes, I would say very, very simple. Gani is totally right. Ian, sorry to say, but Gani is a really a military guy who understands that. Look at the video. And I was captured by the track, and I was very, very wrong. The ship is moving very fast. From the ship, the blow starts, and just blow above the water. Probably the ship was a bit submerged. Will let no debris on the bridge. Second, an explosion at that level will use the water like directional propagation of the force of explosion, so will blow up the part of concrete. And I think they affect very hard the piers because water propagate very, very fast the shock waves. At this moment, the Crimean Bridge, I think, is totally fucked because you don't see just the effects above the water. Imagine that shock wave propagate in water, amplified, will affect the structural, will affect the foundation, and I think was very well coordinated. Maybe some coincidence, but I think probably they use the CCTV camera hacked to look in real time what they're doing. They have a satellite on orbit. They have a lot of drones. And I think this blow will make Mr. Putin to shorten his reign in Moscow. And thank you, Gani, for illuminating. I'll drop down.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I would just say it's a theory. I haven't convinced myself about it. There are some things I don't like about it. There would have to be a considerable amount, therefore it would have to be a fairly substantial vessel. But there is a really good approach route, because there's a lot of ganged up vessels waiting at anchor to the south. That's the approach route that I would use if I was confident that I could navigate the vessel remotely. It would give me cover and concealment from any shoreside radar and the short range radar on any patrol vessels, right up till I broke away from the pack and made my final run in. I quite like that idea, and it's close to the shoreline as well. So if I was remote piloting the vessel, I could sit on the coast. I could use night vision equipment to keep a track of the boat, and I could probably also do a BDA, like a bomb damage assessment after, just with a set of binos. I quite like that idea. It's hard to judge because obviously with the camera it's a CCTV system, so you'll get a lot of flare from the initial blast. So the picture that we saw on the alleged CCTV camera, the screen will have flared quite badly. So a lot of the picture quality would have gone. I'm not sold on the truck bomb thing at all. I used to do some stuff about VBIEDs. That just doesn't feel right. But yeah, the bent out guardrails make sense. Yeah. Still, jury's out. I'm not completely convinced an airstrike isn't there. I don't think it was by FBA fighter bomber. The idea that the Ukrainians put a strike package together and actually flew up there and then dropped a couple of JDAM equivalents strikes me as extremely unlikely. I think we can probably knock that out the ballpark completely. But the boat thing is Crimea. There's a lot of there are a lot of disgruntled, supportive Ukrainians there. Ukrainian SOF have shown an ability to carry out some pretty epic operations. I'm just saying it's that bow wave to me. If the CCTV footage is genuine, that bow wave's really interesting, and it screams sudden deceleration to me. But I can see why people won't buy this at all. To be honest with you, mate, it's it's just another option, isn't it?
Thank you, Gani. I think the next one in line, I hope I'm not mistaken, is Dr. Paul.
Thanks, Zonda. So, Gunny, I definitely want to, go back to what you were saying about, the whole notion of suicide bombers and things like that, just briefly. So first of all, the mood of the Ukrainian armed forces is very chipper this morning with the, heroic and absolute epic status of their trolling of the Russian government after this victorious day for them. I don't think they would be doing that if they would sanction a suicide trucker driver. I really don't. I think that's my number one thing, is I really don't think that they would be in such a good mood. If that was the case, they would be a little bit more somber in mood. And the reason I say that is because there's actually a precedent here in this war, and they didn't sanction this. It was just a heroic act, right? Which soldiers do, not all the time per se, but they do this. Back in March, April, some guy like who's amazing, and I feel horrible for not memorizing his name or getting it tattooed on my arm, but just to say he destroyed a bridge and took his own life to do so to help his brothers kind of escape. And so I think that's like an example. And if you recall, that mood on that day was very different than it is today. I don't remember what Ukraine armed forces did publicly about it, but it was very much a recognition of him and his servitude to Ukraine. So to me, I'm totally, the truck bomb theory is bullshit, and I'm sorry to cuss. I think it's complete BS. I do believe what you and others have been saying. I think it's a two-pronged approach: top-down attack and bottom-up attack from a boat and a missile, or whatever it may be. Not sure, but it seems like to me it seems like there's definitely a boat, and it seems like there's definitely was something from the top as well for a variety of reasons. The bent guardrails, Gunny, I totally agree with that. I noticed that, and I was talking with CJ about that. So I think that's an important facet of it. Now, Ian, one key point, Ian, was kind enough to refute one of my pushbacks about the truck bombs. So great, thank you, Ian. They do put down a substantial amount of force downward, not just upward and outward. So that's like an important facet. But what I did notice about that photo, if you look at it, there's like crevitation is what I'm going to call it. That's probably not a precise term, of the concrete all along the line. As the force moved outward from the explosion, the concrete started shattering. So to me, I would just say with a truck bomb, it's not as clean cut surgical type of look to me. Not to say this means anything, just to say that's what I take away from that photo is very different than what we're seeing here. So truck bomb is still feasible. It's just to say that it seems to have a different force pattern that exudes pressures on concrete and steel differently than what we are seeing here. To me, what I see with the Kerch bridge strike, everything's intact. The force is exerted on a very precise point. So it just looks a little bit different than the truck bomb, which is like an uncontrolled explosion, which causes these cavitations or whatever you want to call it along the concrete that we can see. So not an expert, but those were my takeaways. But Gunny, I just want to make that point there. I really don't and that's the number one thing for me with the truck bomb. I really don't think Ukraine would do that in an offensive manner ever. Frankly, to me, they're a Western style military. United States doesn't send necessarily like suicide missions out there. I really don't think if they did, if it was a truck bomb, it was an autonomous driver. There was nobody inside that vehicle.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. I think it is safe to say at this point we don't have all the data. So as the data will come in, we will know more for sure. For now, we can issue educated guess, some educated guesses based on our experiences and knowledge and what we see in the current videos, which are for the time being released. Thank you for your input. The next one is Jerry.
Yes, hi. Yes, this is Jerry. I'm not sure if to go with the truck bomb versus the boat. Those are both interesting theories. I do want to push back on the idea of having the missiles being involved, simply because of the choice of target selection. It seems very clear that there was not a missile that struck the railroad bridge, and that is what would have been the highest priority target of a military strike. I imagine with the missiles, there probably would have been more than one. There probably would have been, half a dozen at least, just in case some of those anti-missile systems actually work, and we're able to take out some of them. I think there would have been a lot more redundancy and a lot more focus on the railroad bridge rather than the road bridge. So I think both the truck bomb and the boat bomb seem had interesting theories. I would also, in addition to saying that I don't think missiles were involved, in addition to that, I would also say keep it simple. There's the every time you make an additional thing, they had to do. They had to set the charges, and then they send a boat, and then they had a truck driving over it. Every time you put a step like that, that means you're adding points of failure. And with this kind of thing, you just want one thing, so that there's only one thing that could go wrong, and you wouldn't have you won't have many points of failure. So I would say look for, it was either a truck bomb or it was the boat. I doubt that it's both. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. I will ask my Romanian compatriots to be a bit patient. I will go to Luis and then to Christian and Ioana. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry. Just woke up here in Germany and seeing the amazing news. But I'm a little bit disappointed when I came into the space, because all this negativity about what's going on the bridge. I mean, guys, it was a present for Putin. It's a planned fireworks job that it was planned for him. So nothing, not everything is backed with negativity. So I mean, think about that. Ukrainians are being killed, raped, and still they put such a present for Putin on his birthday. It's simply amazing and heartbreaking. And I would like to put one question in the room. Zaluzhny got his Twitter account, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. This is absolutely planned because he wanted to see our reactions to it, to this present that Ukrainians made for Putin. And I'm really hoping that he is enjoying it. All the memes that are coming out are hilarious. And just wanted to say that. And good morning and good evening to everyone.
Thank you very much, Luis. Christian?
Good morning, and what a great morning this is. To be honest, we have so little data about this whole thing, and we can't really know what actually happened. That's my 2 cents about it. But the most important thing is the message that it sends. This is a great deal. Politically, this is a great deal. It's basically the golden status of Putin from 2014. This was the grand prize of it, the interconnectivity to the Crimea Peninsula. So this is a really good message. I don't believe, and I hate it when people write about stuff, write about the things that happen like this, major stuff that go on, like this is going to be a great escalation and shit like that. I would just really love for people to stop talking this nonsense. The greatest escalation happened in 2014, then February of this year, and so on and so on. the greatest escalations happened each time Ukrainians liberated another town and another town and another town, in which they found, almost to a point, mass graves, children being executed and killed, raped, tortured. And on this point, there is no other escalation than this. So basically, this message is a big FU to Mr. Putin and to Russia. And I hope this will continue to happen more and more and more. And I know it will. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Ivana?
Yes, thank you. I had to drop off at one moment because I had a call, but I wanted to say what I observed from the pictures and the videos I found on Twitter. In fact, there is one video where it's shown that the road is broken in two parts, in two places, two separate places, and none of them is directly below the railroad that exploded. So this, in my mind, is consistent with at least two ways of attacking. I cannot give an insight about how it was, but at least two, because it's impossible. The shockwave could not destroy the road in the places that appear on the videos. And another thing, I really don't think it's missiles. To hit a bridge with missiles, it's very complicated. It's a very thin line to lock on, and even if you lock on, the differences in atmospheric pressure and things like this can make you not hit the target by, even if it's by half a meter, the missile will go and not hit the bridge. It does not have a hit signature, so you cannot lock on hit unless there is something on the bridge that has a hit signature. So it's kind of complicated. And also, just my opinion as a lay woman, let's say, I do not think there was suicide attacks. I think we should take into consideration a remote detonated excited about this very nice present to Putin and Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivana. Luis, I see you have your hand up. Please.
Thank you, Enda. What Christian just said is important because I since I woke up, I'm reading Telegram channels, Russian Telegram channels, and they are also talking about personal attack on Putin because this bridge was his personal project and it costed billions. And what Christian said is we have to point out that again and again and again, because if there was one part that should escalate every single day is Ukraine. That has the right to escalate is Ukraine. That had the right, if they were able to nuke Moscow, and I know what I am saying is Ukraine, because their children, their women, their men are slaughtered in Ukraine. Children are being raped and killed afterwards. This is something that you have to explain to every listener or person that you talk to, that this is no escalation. This is pure defense. And I'm already reading in Telegram channels that the bridge will be up and running in 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I don't know where they get the engineers in Russia, but I think the bridge will be out for many months to come. And this is really a huge impact. First of all, on supplies to Russian soldiers in Crimea and therefore in Ukraine, but also a huge impact on the mentality of the people that live in Crimea that are backed by Russia. We already see a huge traffic amounts on gas stations to buy gas so that they can get out of Crimea. And this is simply, for my personal point of view, simply awesome, and then the right way to start a weekend. So again, thank you, Ukraine, for this amazing present, and continue to kick Russians' ass whenever you can. Slava Ukraini.
Herem Slava. I will try to bring some more people up. I will kind remind you to retweet this space and remind everyone that we are 24 hours here. And if someone wants to donate, they can use MriyaAid. It's an all volunteer organization which helps Ukraine with non-lethal aid, tourniquets, bandages, drones, and many more. And I will go to Wendy, and then I will try to bring some more people up. Thank you.
Thank you, and I guess, like a lot of people, I'm struck by two pieces of news this morning. One is of the nature that we've seen, of a very sobering nature that we've seen since the 24th of February this year, but also since 2014, and that is the systematic genocide of Ukrainians by Russians in Ukraine. We saw this in 2014, of course. We saw protesters who went on the streets of the Donbass, proudly displaying their Ukrainian identity. They ended up in shallow graves dug in their local parks. What we see coming out of Le Mans today and yesterday evening was unfortunately of the exact same systematic genocidal nature. And this is why Ukraine has, since 2014, needed support. It's needed support because it's got a genocidal neighbor that lies to the east of it that wants to kill as many Ukrainians as possible. And despite the recent progress we've seen on the battlefield as Ukrainian warriors bleed for the liberation of their country, what Ukraine has needed since 2014, let alone since the 24th of February this year, what it has needed is an increase in international help, not less and not the same. So to prevent this barbaric country that invaded Ukraine from doing this again, maybe in, I don't know, 10 years after it's finally defeated on the battlefield, maybe in 20 years, 50 years, heck, let's make it 51 years, one extra year to make one extra year of school kids in Ukraine living in, we hope, a peaceful future. Let's get them to school safely, 51 years in the future without being under bombardment. Let's ensure that this barbaric invading country is defeated now, is isolated internationally, is treated like North Korea, is given the same treatment as North Korea, in which it is absolutely ostracized from the international community, from trading with the rest of the world, because these Moscow fascists commit crime after crime, and they need to be defeated absolutely on the battlefield as swiftly as possible. So the future of Ukrainian people, and you know, this is absolutely essential that this outcome happens. The news from the Kerch Strait Bridge is, yeah, it's heartening news, but it's also important to note that I'm sure it's already been noted that this Moscow regime is known for Potemkin productions produced for a pliant population. It manufactures this kind of production propaganda all the time. So I'm sure we will have one of our many great military experts on this space later come and give their insights on it much better than I can now. But Liman, as we've seen, is more evidence of systemic genocide, of graves dug for the younger generations, indicative that these groups of people were separated before they were murdered. There is systemic guilt, the perpetrators of which will be held accountable by Ukraine's long arm of justice into the future. Thank you for this space. Thank you for the international solidarity that this space provides. And Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava. And thank you, Wendy. Your words are deeply touching, and you highlighted the essence of this war and why we need to help Ukraine further. And let's not forget all the displaced people which are now in concentration camps or moved some across Russia, taken from their homes. The numbers are staggering. The last I checked, there were like 500,000 children alone, which need to be brought back in Ukraine. So, however, however this war ends legally, my hope is in three directions. One, to see Ukraine liberated. Two, to see all the prisoners of war and all the persons who were displaced brought back to Ukraine. And three, to see the rest of the world helping Ukraine rebuild itself, because we must not forget that all the battles are on Ukraine soil, and the regions which are right now contested are also destroyed. That means homes, bridges, everything you like. So Yeah, I will let Wendy reply because I think he has something to add, and then I will go to Luis.
Thank you, Anda, and Luis. I'll be quick. Yes, I think Anda, what you laid out with concisely there were the conditions for Ukrainian victory, which does not just include the withdrawal of these barbaric invading troops from the country that lies to the east from the battlefield, but the return of the deported 3.5 million Ukrainians, 500,000 of them children, and in a crime which the country perpetrating this crime has recorded and put up videos for its own propaganda reasons online. The arm of Ukrainian justice will be long in the future. And what Ukraine needs, I'm sure, from its allies, is the calm, collective solidarity, in an increase in solidarity, not the same level of support, as I said, certainly not less, but definitely not the same level of support. It needs an increase in support, an increase in weapon systems, an increase in any support that Ukraine's allies can offer Ukraine now to ensure the swiftest end to this genocide that's happening around places like Liman, to the genocide that's been happening in places in the Donbass since 2014. And we need to ensure. Check.
Yeah, your mic went.
Yeah, sorry, I had a call.
Yeah, you're like in a can, very far away.
Sorry, I had a call coming through. Yeah, we had it needs an increase in the support in every single area. Not the same. I'm not going to talk about the less, but not the same, because separating groups of people by age and digging separate graves for them is indicative of a very organized genocide. I mean, every genocide is unique, you know, but this particular news out of Liman today is notable and takes people back to a time which they'd rather not add comparisons to. So thank you, Anda. Luis, I'm sorry for going on a little bit too much, but
you're not going on too much. Is my mic clear?
Oh, sorry. Well, hi, Yehuda.
Hi, you're not. Some people accuse other groups of talking about genocide too much. Obviously, people talk about it, so it shouldn't happen again. And obviously, we failed in that mission. I do want to highlight a couple things that disturbed me, and I'm going to be very blunt and clear. First of all, welcome to the space. MriyaReport is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as Anda just said. Appreciate that. We're speaking about the constant invasion and genocide of Ukrainians, speaking through Ukrainian voices, Western lenses, analysts from actually Ukraine and the West. Let's make a couple of points clear. We don't exactly know the details of the mass graves, how these poor souls got there. However, at a bare minimum, these people were murdered in Russian artillery strikes, at least a bare minimum, and were later unceremoniously buried in mass graves. So the Russians, you will hear, are going to say, well, this is all concocted. These are civilians that the Ukrainians murdered, or these are civilians that Ukrainians artillery killed, and we were just nice enough to throw them in graves because we're great people. That's the bare minimum of what could have happened. What will happen is war crimes investigators are already on the scene. They will determine people tied up with bullet wounds in the head. Guess what? That's not from artillery. However, we've seen it. We called it. We discussed before Bucha and Irpin happened, the reports were coming out of people being murdered in a similar Nazi-like fashion by Russian forces. Guess what, though? When the idiotic Russian military levels artillery at cities, men, women, children, elderly will die. Those are war crimes. Doesn't matter how they were killed at that point. They knowingly destroyed cities and had a carte blanche to do so. So whatever you hear from Russian Telegram channels over the next few days and weeks, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant how those people died. They were murdered. A family sheltering in place in their house or basement being blown up by an artillery shell, at the end of the day, has the same effect of those people being rounded up and shot. We do know people have been rounded up and shot. That's just a fact. We've seen it. Bodies don't tie themselves up and crush their own skulls or shoot themselves in the head. And that's something that the Russians do. So you need to be very super clear, because there will be a lot of misinformation. Russians will be on their version of damage control, which isn't very highbrow. It's not very sophisticated. It's almost like a dummy thought it up. But I do want to say, so I'm not going to attack a speaker personally, but I do want to say this. If the nuclear weapon comment, if they had nuclear weapons, they should do it to Moscow. Absolutely not. That's what genocidal maniacs do. President Zelensky made it quite clear in an interview with the BBC just today. He made a comment about invading Russia. He says, we don't do that because we're not terrorists. A Russian soldier had a leg trapped by a tank against a wall and asked the Ukrainian soldier to finish him off. And the Ukrainian soldier very calmly said, no, we don't do that. We're not you. So although it might feel good, let's keep that kind of hyperbole to ourselves. If Ukraine had a nuclear weapon, they shouldn't use it to murder, because these don't justify each other. Could they use it on a military target? Heck yeah. However, another comment, I just want to clarify. Someone prefaced their statements by saying they're a lay person and not an expert, and then proceeded to say that ATACMS or a missile couldn't blow up the bridge. Absolute nonsense. The Russians are lucky if their munitions hit the right country, not the right target, the right country. American munitions, don't fool yourself. Those can hit on the penny. Some of them on the penny. So going over to the Kerch Bridge, I've said it, there's no secret. I'm pretty convinced for certain reasons that the Ukrainians have had ATACMS for a couple months already. They've been told not to use them, that they're in country, should they be required, that you're going to get a green light from the Americans. Let's call a spade a spade. This is the beautiful chart about effing around and finding out, and the inverse relationship between the two. And I would say that this is a very strong and clear signal by the West. The gloves are off for Ukraine. And what is the punishment? What is this a punishment for? An escalation for? This is for Putin babbling on about nuclear weapons. This is what Zelensky said in a interview about 2-3 days ago, where certain detractors from Zelensky, certain clowns in Russia said, "Oh, he's asking for a nuclear preemptive strike." He's referring to, we need to let the Russians know, for all their dumb, stupid, racist, genocidal comments and endeavors, there's a punishment to pay. There's a consequence to be had. And guess what? Welcome to the Kerch Bridge. Do not, if you think for 1 second that ATACMS, whoever said it, you shouldn't have said it, atmospheric pressure, can't. ATACMS, they could have picked a spot on the bridge, this little dot on the bridge, and hit it, and that's exactly what I suspect they did. I did just wake up. However, I mean, we've been talking about this for a very long time, and the effects of ATACMS or other munitions on targets. God bless the United States for bringing that into play. And you know what? I guess it's not the birthday present Mr. Putin wanted. However, you don't get to threaten nuclear war and joke about the destruction of humanity because you're a psychopath. It's just that simple. And we should be, it's a watershed moment in this war. Kerch Bridge, highly symbolic, highly important, used for resupply. There's no reason, there's not even a justification to ask the Ukrainians not to do certain things. Liman, mass graves, we forget Liman. Wait till you get to Donbass. Wait till you get to Donetsk. Wait till you get to Mariupol. And you're going to see hundreds of thousands of civilians dead. This is a genocide in 2022. How they're murdered, I don't care. And it's not relevant. It is relevant to an extent, for sure. But I think the reason why I want to clarify that to our friends Wendy, Luis, and others is I want to make it clear that it's not necessarily it's not necessarily uh, demonstrative of how these people died. They very, in many cases, there were people that were buried after the fact. They were still killed by Russians, right? So we just have to keep remembering that that the excuse of, oh, they were killed in artillery and then we're just burying them. Oh, you're making a big deal out of it. Well, you still murdered them, dummy. You still murdered those families because you can't fight. So here's the interesting part. The Russians are not capable of fighting properly. They suck. Their infantry sucks. Their engineers suck. Everyone sucks. The only thing they can do is sit, 5, 10, 15 kilometers and fire thousands of guns. The one thing the Russians have a ton of are artillery pieces. They have a lot of guns. So their goal is, because they can't fight and go door to door, and they can't, bound across a field and attack positions in a combined arms maneuver, they're like, oh, that's too complicated and we're not too bright. So what we'll do is we will carpet bomb, we will destroy by artillery fire everything, like a shell every meter, and until there's nothing left, and we'll just walk on. That's the result that you get. And those are all war crimes, and they're going to own it, and they're going to wear it, and hopefully they're all in jail. Thanks for being here. I do want you to, again, retweet the space. We're going to be on. The tempo of this show will step up. There will be escalations. There will be saber rattling from the Russians. And this President Zelensky is 100,000% right. What needs to be done is Russia needs to be told, and the only way you talk to Russia is through the end of a gun. Russia needs to be told that your dumb, stupid, crazy behavior will be met with disproportionate force, and they're going to turn it up. I'm going to go to Luis. Thanks so much, Anda, and thank you for everyone for being here. Luis.
Hey, good morning, Yuda. Thank you for your statements. Actually, I have 2 points to make. One is regarding to you, Yehuda. I totally disagree a little bit on what you said, that it doesn't matter, because it for me personally, it does matter how they got killed. But this is also the Maria report, right? So we are also able to disagree on some points and continue together the efforts for Ukraine winning this war. We will have next week a special guest here on the Maria Report. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose who that is because it's unfortunate that we have some bad actors that are doing some nasty stuff in the background, so we cannot promote the special guests.
We don't have to get into the housekeeping details, Luis, just for
yeah,
the others, why.
But we will have someone that we will be able to talk to that and how it is important to understand that this is a genocide, and this is a fight or a war where everything that is Ukrainian is being tried to be destroyed. If language, books, history, everything they want to destroy, and it is important that you understand that Russians do not see Ukrainians as human beings, and this will be explained next week, and I'm really looking forward to it. The second point I have is actually a question for Wendy, because I know he's also following this very closely. Maybe you can explain to the audience. I know Kirchbridge is absolute important topic that we should continue discussing, but he spoke about kidnapping Ukrainian children, and maybe you can talk about the children that were kidnapped from I think, the Kherson region last week or this week, at the beginning of the week, to Crimea. And this is also something that shows you how Russians think. They are shielding themselves in Crimea with Ukrainian children. And maybe
Louis,
you can.
Louis, if I could just, I appreciate your question. We have other people on this space who are speakers who have come up who can speak on this far better than I can. That's just the first thing. I appreciate your question. We've had some really excellent. In fact, if you check out the MriyaReport page and the Spotify account, there's been some really excellent speakers on there recently, relating to this.
We'll get to that. Let's why don't you finish off, Luis?
No, I was just I was finished.
Okay.
It is
So-
absolutely. Let me just make a final statement.
Yep.
It is absolutely for me important for me, and you know me now, that we make a clear point to everyone that we are talking to, that. Like I say many times, the words that we use, like torture, genocide, and murdering and raping, do not describe 100% what is really going on the ground. These are, for me, simply words that cannot describe all the pain and the losses that Ukrainians are going through right now. That's why we have to keep repeating this. And the action or the thing they did at the beginning of the week, just kidnapping the children and taking to Crimea.
Yeah.
It's
well, Luis, also we don't know they did that yet. They said they were going to, and we talked about their inability to move those children as well. So it, and I want to clarify something. I didn't say it was not important how they died. I said it doesn't matter. So we're not actually in a disagreement. So the reason why I say this is, Luis, you, myself, a lot of people, and a lot of the audience are very dialed into this. However, we get 300-400 people, 500 people new each day who do look at other forms of news and propaganda from the Russian side, and they're going to see the argument that I stated. What's that argument? Well, that these people weren't shot. These were just unfortunate victims of the Ukrainian instigated war, of course. You see, those were artillery from the Ukrainians that killed them, not our artillery. They're going to try to obfuscate. So instead of waiting for those comments to come out, Luis, what I'm doing is I'm jumping the gun and saying, hey, regardless of how the Russians killed them, because we know the Russians killed them, regardless how they killed them, it's still a war crime. It still is equally bad. It was still a planned and premeditated artillery bombardment on a defenseless town of civilians. Now, we'll find out just which ones were shot in the head or murdered in person, up close and personal, and those will all be recorded. That is important, but it does not matter in the war crime sense. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you see the difference, Luis?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry for my English, Yehuda.
No problem.
We are in absolutely agreement. It's sometimes difficult for me to choose the right words, especially in the morning when my English is not working fine.
Yeah, you're a polyglot. Most people don't speak one language properly, let alone 3 or 4 like you. So listen, again, you're going to see the Russians try to obfuscate. They're going to say things like, because we're here to teach about disinformation too. The Russian narrative will undoubtedly be, this is not our fault. This is the Ukrainians who shelled